identify bottlenecks in the movement of coal.
Abhimanyu, many thanks for joining us. The Advertising Standards Council of India has conducted a dipstick survey of 820 respondents above the age of 18. The key findings of the report suggest that 79% of people in India trust social media influencers and that they are likely to buy products that they endorse. However, complaints over misleading ads are also piling up. Archana joins us now with the details. Archana.
Thank you, Shireen, for that. So basically, an online study conducted by the Advertising Standards Council of India says that a whopping 79% people trust influencers. And as a result of that, 7 in every 10 Indians are likely to buy a product that has been endorsed by them. The Advertising Standards Council, or ASCI, has come out with its Influencer Trust Report. The key takeaways are 90% of respondents have made purchases based on influencer endorsements. And the reason is transparency and honesty about brand associations, relatable content, personal stories, their follower count, and to some extent, their sense of humor. This behavior seemed to be more prevalent among people aged 25 to 44. At the same time, not being honest and transparent was the top reason why people might lose trust in these influencers. Other reasons were repetitive content, promoting too many products, unrealistic lifestyle, and body image. Not to mention, 64% of respondents think that a brand becomes more trustworthy if an influencer endorses it. Another key takeaway was misleading ads and violations. Now look at the number. ASCI has received 2,767 complaints against brands and influencers for not declaring connections since the guidelines were released in May 2021. Now, according to this report, most of these violations were seen in the personal care and food and beverages category. Instagram is the most guilty of them all, followed by YouTube. Now, this pending behavior can also be gauged from the fact that 6 out of 10 respondents claim to spend at least 2 hours on social media every day. Back to you.
All right, Archana, appreciate you joining us. That is the latest as far as the ASCI survey is concerned. Well, moving on, we do have a lot more coming up for you right here on CNBC TV 18, but that's it then on this edition of Business.
All right. Thank you very much, Ashmit, for joining us. Let's shift focus to an important subject in the interest of consumers. Have you ever purchased products after your favorite influencer promoted it on social media? Well, you're not alone. A dipstick survey by the Advertising Standards Council of India has found that 79% of Indians above the age of 18 trust social media influencers and are likely to buy products they endorse. This survey was conducted among 820 respondents. However, the survey also found that complaints over misleading ads are also piling up. To take this forward, I'm now joined by Manisha Kapoor, CEO and Secretary General of Advertising Standards Council of India, the organization behind this survey. Manisha, let me begin by asking you. Your survey says that 90% of respondents have made purchases based on influencer endorsement. Now, what was the main reason for this, or some of the main reasons that you came across during your survey?
Yeah, so thanks, Parikshit. So I think one things we need to remember is that this was an online survey, and therefore, even the respondents are likely to be people who are savvier online, and therefore it's important that this not be generalized to the entire population. So I think for people who are savvy and who are on the lookout for interesting content, who are perhaps used to shopping online as well, and getting both their information as well as doing e-commerce and social commerce, I think influencers become a fairly important way in which they discover new brands, they discover new offerings from brands they may know about, understand how these products may be used, and influencers reviewing such products. So I think there is a fairly intimate relationship between audiences online and influencers, and I think that's the reason why influencers wield so much influence over their audiences and consumption as well.
Right. Also, what were some of the factors that kept audiences away? And the sample size was around 850 respondents?
820. Yeah,
right.
So the sample size
just
was
coming to the fact about what were the factors because of which people stayed away from endorsements? You spoke about how trust and transparency were very important to consumers.
Absolutely. So I think, again, when we look at an online audience, this is an audience which is becoming savvier about how things and business and content is produced online. It understands that content has a particular agenda. And I don't think they have a problem with that per se, but when that agenda is not disclosed, I think people understand that they are not being given complete information, and that becomes a turn off for them. And that's one of the reasons, in fact, one of the leading reasons why people unfollow certain influencers. The others are things like repetitive content, or content that is no longer relatable in some way. But these are the big reasons, and from an ASCII perspective, it's actually very heartwarming for us to see both sides of the coin, that transparency amongst influencers actually builds trust, and lack of transparency depletes it. So I think this is really a win-win situation for brands, influencers, and audiences, that when there is transparency and authenticity, that everyone finds some value in that content and work.
All right. You've also mentioned the number of complaints you've received since 2020 against influencers, against brand endorsements. What was the nature of these complaints, and how were they dealt with by the organization?
So the complaints numbers are both complaints that we have received from members of the public, but also we have a very, very strong suo motu surveillance system using artificial intelligence, and that also tracks a lot of the influencer and brand activities online. And it is through a combination of these two sources that we have taken up these cases. And many of these cases pertain to the non-disclosure guidelines. And as you would know, ASCII released these guidelines in 21. And, now with the government also taking a similar view that any material connection between influencers and brands needs to be disclosed if the post has been paid for in some way by the brand. So that, I think, is the nature of the violations also that we are largely seeing with influencers, which is not disclosing that the content that they are putting out is connected with a brand, and that they may have received either in cash or through certain other arrangements, some kind of a payment to put out that particular content.
Right. Thank you so much, Manisha, for joining us, giving us a sense of your report of why people are choosing brands and what role do influencers have to play here as well. Thanks once again for being with us here on CNBC TV 18. We're heading into a short break, but coming up, Republican Nikki Haley announces her presidential bid for 2024 U.S. elections. A discussion with former Indian ambassador to the United States, Navteej Sarna, when we're back.